Senator Gill.
Mr. President, I first would like to concur with the remarks of the minority leader, Senator Lance, with respect to our acting governor and Senate president. I think this state needs a lieutenant governor. However, this state does not need and can ill afford the lieutenant governor bill as proposed in this legislation. The purpose of secession is to guarantee an orderly transfer and implementation of power. This bill creates an instability in the succession of power that does not currently exist under our imperfect system of secession. First, in the case of a vacancy in the governor's office, the lieutenant governor will not serve out the unexpired term of the governor. The lieutenant governor fills the office only until the next general election, unless the vacancy is within 60 days of the next election, and as such, the maximum time a lieutenant governor could serve as governor would be 14 months. According to the executive director of the National Association of Lieutenant Governors, over the last 3.5 years, nationally there has been 7 instances of secession where lieutenant governors have assumed the office of governor, and they all fill the unexpired term. Thus, under this proposed amendment, when a lieutenant governor assumes office, rather than being focused on governing the state, he or she must begin concentrating on a campaign for election. If this is his or her desire, furthermore, he or she is not even guaranteed party support. ACR 100 requires that a new governor be elected at the next general election rather than allowing the lieutenant governor, who was elected to a concurrent term with the governor, fill out the unexpired term. Thus, this bill creates the probability and possibility of having 3 different governors in less than 4 years.
Well, it's better than 5 in a week.
You know, it all depends on who's one of the 5, but I will go along with your determination, Governor. Second, in the event of a vacancy in the office of lieutenant governor, the governor fills the position by appointment, and the appointed lieutenant governor serves the unexpired term, which is concurrent with the governor. However, the lieutenant governor who is elected by the people is not permitted to serve the unexpired term. This results in proposing a constitutional amendment that restricts the power and the voice of the people. Third, the duties of the lieutenant governor are not adequately specified, such that it creates governmental chaos in the midst of a vacancy in the governor's office. As proposed, the governor shall appoint the lieutenant governor to serve as the head of a principal department or other executive or administrative agency of state government, or delegate to the lieutenant governor duties of the office of governor, or both, of course excluding the attorney general. The governor may appoint the lieutenant governor to serve as the head of a principal department without advice and consent of the Senate, and this adds to the chaos, not with respect to this governor, but you would be required to serve at the pleasure of the governor during the governor's term in office. Thus, the duties and power of the lieutenant governor are subject to the whim of the governor. The governor could simply designate menial duties within the office of the governor to the lieutenant governor. If appointed to head of a principal department or agency, the lieutenant governor serves at the governor's pleasure. Thus, he or she could be removed from that role at any time. In the case where lieutenant governor serves as the head of a principal department, for example, the Department of, or the Secretary of State, if a vacancy occurs in the office of the governor, a vacancy would occur in the Secretary of State office. If the lieutenant governor succeeds the governor, this would create unnecessary instability in another government department or agency. If particular duties were delineated, powers would be clear and unnecessary transitions could be avoided. Therefore, I think that we need, in order not to disrupt government, the duties of lieutenant governor must be specifically laid out. Fourth, a lieutenant governor could not take office until 210, and the Senate president would fill in the position. While the Senate president would have to surrender his or her seat if she chose to fill that vacancy of governor, he or she is still not a person subject to statewide election. And finally, additionally, under this proposed amendment, voter participation and influence is diminished. The gubernatorial candidate selects a candidate for lieutenant governor within 30 days after the primary and after the gubernatorial nomination. That means the candidate for lieutenant governor does not participate in the primary. The primary election plays a pivotal role since this is the domain where women and minorities have considerable influence in determining who will be the ultimate candidates. This permits less accountability to the electorate in the selection process. Thereby, it is really the party who determines who will be the lieutenant governor after the primary rather than the voters in the primary. And finally, the ballot fails to inform the voters that the lieutenant governor does not fill the unexpired term in the event of a vacancy in the governor's office. Voters should be aware of this when, and in order to make a fully informed decision when casting a vote for this constitutional amendment. I should be one of the persons in this Senate who would vigorously fight for the position of lieutenant governor. And although I may have a personal political preference, we have to look to the stability and the constitutionality of this particular bill. And though it may be constitutional, it undermines the very stability of the transfer and implementation of power. And although I think that the present system is imperfect, the one proposed under this bill is intolerable, and therefore I will not support it.